Nobody in the courtroom knew his name yet. They only knew the headlines. Youngest crypto CEO to hit $900 million net worth. The Bitcoin Prince. The man who turns memes into money. His real name was Logan Price, a 27-year-old crypto millionaire with a reputation bigger than his bank account. He walked through the courthouse doors wearing a designer hoodie, diamond watch, and the kind of smirk only someone who believed the world bowed to him could wear. But today he wasn't walking into a conference hall or an investor summit. He was walking into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom. A room where fame meant nothing. Money meant nothing. Ego meant nothing. Still, Logan acted like he owned the place. He didn't step in quietly like everyone else. He strolled in loud, confident, untouchable. Talking on the phone with someone who definitely wasn't talking about the case. He laughed, loudly, as if the courtroom was his private lounge. The officer near the door raised an eyebrow. People in the gallery stared. But Logan didn't care. He tapped on his AirPods, chuckled, and said, "Dude, I swear, if this judge wastes my time, I'm pulling everything. I don't need this stupid summons. I'm Logan Price, bro. They should be thanking me for showing up." The courtroom went silent. Not a legal silence. A fearful silence. The type of silence that said, "This man has no idea who he's dealing with." Judge Frank Caprio entered moments later. Calm. Warm. Composed. As always, he greeted the room. "Good morning, everyone." People responded softly, except Logan, who didn't respond at all. He didn't even look up. He just kept talking. "Yeah bro, I'm in court right now." "Yeah, the judge just walked in." "Whatever. He can wait." Someone gasped. The officer took a step forward. But Judge Caprio lifted his hand gently. "No, it's all right," he said quietly. He sat down, placed his glasses on, and scanned the paperwork. Then he spoke. Case number 7. Logan Price. Logan didn't hear him. He was still on the phone, laughing like this was a beach party. Judge Caprio tried again, calmly. "Mr. Price, your case has been called." Still nothing. The judge looked at him, really looked at him, and there was no anger in his expression. Only disappointment. But the room felt the shift. Something heavy. Something inevitable. Judge Caprio cleared his throat. "Mr. Price, please hang up the phone." Logan waved one hand casually, signaling 1 minute, and kept talking. He didn't even look at the judge. He didn't even acknowledge him. People in the back whispered. "He's dead. He has no idea. How can anyone disrespect Caprio like that?" Still on the phone, Logan said. "Bro, I'm literally in front of some old guy. Like, some local judge or something. Who cares?" Every soul in the courtroom froze. And at that exact moment, Judge Caprio looked directly at the camera, then at the audience in the room, and softly said, "Before we continue, if you are someone who believes in respect, compassion, and justice, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. It helps us share more stories like this, and it means more than you know." The room exhaled slightly. A small warmth inside the tension. But his eyes returned to Logan. And the warmth was gone. "Mr. Price," the judge said firmly now. "Hang up the phone." Logan laughed again. He pointed at the judge, still talking to his friend. "Bro, he's mad. This is hilarious." The officer stepped forward again. People stared in disbelief. And finally, Logan tapped his AirPod. But not to end the call. To turn the volume up. Judge Caprio closed the file slowly. The sound was soft, but it carried weight. A warning. A storm building. Logan finally lifted his eyes for the first time. And smirked. "Oh," he said mockingly. "You wanted something?" A collective gasp filled the courtroom. Judge Caprio folded his hands. "Mr. Price, you are in a courtroom. Not a nightclub. Not a private jet. Not a crypto convention." He leaned forward. "And certainly not a place where you can treat people as inconveniences." Logan shrugged. "I told you, I'm busy. I'm not here to waste time with petty rules." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Petty rules?" Logan crossed his arms, bored. "I'm a CEO. I move markets. I don't sit around waiting for some small fine about a parking ticket or whatever this is. Let's speed it up." Judge Caprio took a slow breath. "Mr. Price, you were summoned for reckless driving and obstructing an officer. This is not a minor matter." Logan rolled his eyes. "Oh please, man. I pay more in crypto gas fees than the entire fine combined." People shook their heads. This wasn't arrogance. This was delusion. Judge Caprio remained steady. "Mr. Price, your attitude today is far more concerning than your charges." Logan smirked again. "Doubt it." And then Judge Caprio said the words that changed everything. "Officer, please step closer." Logan's smirk faltered. "Just slightly." The officer approached. Judge Caprio spoke. "In this courtroom, respect is not optional. If a person cannot conduct themselves appropriately, consequences follow. No matter their wealth. No matter their status." Logan's jaw tightened. "You're not serious." The judge didn't blink. "Mr. Price, this court gave you every opportunity to show respect. You chose defiance." He looked at the officer. "Prepare to detain the defendant." The courtroom exploded with gasps. Logan stood up instantly. "Whoa, no. No, no, no. You can't cuff me. Do you know who I am?" Judge Caprio replied. "Yes. And that is exactly the problem." And with that, Logan Price, the crypto millionaire, took a step back. For the first time, he looked scared. The officer's boots echoed across the courtroom floor as he stepped closer to Logan Price, the crypto millionaire who thought rules were optional and arrogance was a personality trait. Logan backed away from the podium as if the floor itself had turned into fire. Hey man, relax," he stammered, both hands lifted. "This is a misunderstanding. I didn't do anything." The officer didn't respond, he simply waited for Judge Caprio's next command. Judge Frank Caprio folded his hands slowly, calmly, like a man who had made this kind of decision more times than Logan had checked a Bitcoin chart. "Mr. Price," the judge said, his voice steady. "You are moments away from being handcuffed because of your behavior, not because of your charges." Logan swallowed hard. His arrogance was cracking. Like ice under pressure. "Look," Logan said quickly, trying to laugh it off. "You're blowing this out of proportion. I mean, come on. This is a simple mistake. I was just on a call. Everyone uses phones. It's not a crime." Judge Caprio nodded gently. "You're right. Using a phone is not a crime." His tone shifted, colder, sharper. "But disrespecting a courtroom is." People murmured. Logan's eyes darted around as if expecting someone to come rescue him, a lawyer, a manager, maybe one of his crypto fanboys who worshipped every word he tweeted. But no one was coming. For the first time in his privileged, insulated life, Logan Price was alone. "Your Honor," he said, the smirk gone now. "I think you're taking this personally." The entire room went silent. Judge Caprio leaned back slowly. "Personally," he repeated. "No, Mr. Price. This is not personal. This is about accountability, something you clearly have not learned yet. He motioned lightly toward the officer. Logan panicked. No, wait, he shouted. You can't cuff me. I'm not some criminal. The officer stepped behind him. Logan stumbled forward, nearly tripping. Stop. Don't touch me, don't you dare touch me. Judge Caprio looked at him with a calm, piercing stare. You had every chance to show respect. Instead, you mocked this court. You insulted me. You delayed proceedings. You refused to hang up your phone. And you behaved as if you were above the law. Logan's voice cracked. This is insane. Do you even know who I am? A woman in the gallery scoffed under her breath. Judge Caprio removed his glasses. Mr. Price, he said quietly. When a person must ask if people know who they are, it usually means they've forgotten what it means to be human. Logan froze. The officer waited for the nod to proceed. Judge Caprio continued. You came into this courtroom bragging about your wealth. Your status. Your influence. He paused. But none of those things matter here. Logan's jaw tightened. Please, he said, voice softening. I didn't think it was that serious. I thought it was just a court appearance. Judge Caprio's tone softened too, but it didn't lose its strength. That's exactly the issue, Mr. Price. You didn't think. He leaned forward. Let me tell you something my father once said to me. Respect is free. But disrespect can cost you everything. Logan blinked rapidly. The words hit him harder than he expected. The judge folded his hands again. Young man, you built an empire with technology. You convinced thousands to invest in your ideas. You persuaded people to trust your vision. He paused again. But respect is something you cannot buy. It must be earned. Logan's lips parted, but he didn't speak. For once, he had nothing to say. Judge Caprio then turned to the officer. Hold for one moment. The officer stepped back slightly. Logan exhaled shakily. Mr. Price, the judge said. I am giving you one final chance to show that you are capable of behaving like a responsible adult. Logan nodded quickly. Judge Caprio looked at him with a calm, piercing stare. You had every chance to show respect. Instead, you mocked this court. You insulted me. You delayed proceedings. You refused to hang up your phone. And you behaved as if you were above the law. Logan's voice cracked. This is insane. Do you even know who I am? A woman in the gallery scoffed under her breath. Judge Caprio removed his glasses. Mr. Price, he said quietly. When a person must ask if people know who they are, it usually means they've forgotten what it means to be human. Logan froze. The officer waited for the nod to proceed. Judge Caprio continued. You came into this courtroom bragging about your wealth. Your status. Your influence. He paused. But none of those things matter here. Logan's jaw tightened. Please, he said, voice softening. I didn't think it was that serious. I thought it was just a court appearance. Judge Caprio's tone softened too, but it didn't lose its strength. That's exactly the issue, Mr. Price. You didn't think. He leaned forward. Let me tell you something my father once said to me. Respect is free. But disrespect can cost you everything. Logan blinked rapidly. The words hit him harder than he expected. The judge folded his hands again. Young man, you built an empire with technology. You convinced thousands to invest in your ideas. You persuaded people to trust your vision. He paused again. But respect is something you cannot buy. It must be earned. Logan's lips parted, but he didn't speak. For once, he had nothing to say. Judge Caprio then turned to the officer. "Hold for one moment." The officer stepped back slightly. Logan exhaled shakily. "Mr. Price," the judge said. "I am giving you one final chance to show that you are capable of behaving like a responsible adult." Logan nodded quickly. His expensive suit suddenly felt cheap under the harsh fluorescent lights. His polished shoes clicked on the concrete floor as he paced, backwards and forwards, like a man trapped inside a nightmare he didn't believe was real. But it was real. Every second. Every breath. Every echo in that cold room. Across the hall, two other detainees watched him with slow, curious glances, not disrespectful, just confused. They recognized him. Everyone did. The CEO of Hale Dynamics. The man who appeared in magazines. The man who lived in penthouses and lectured the world about work ethic. But none of that mattered anymore. Inside a cell, every title disappears. CEO. Millionaire. Powerhouse. All irrelevant. In that moment, he was just another man who had disrespected the wrong courtroom. He pressed his hands against the bars. This can't happen to me," he muttered. "I didn't do anything wrong." But deep down, in the quiet chamber of his thoughts, he knew that wasn't true. He remembered the officer telling him to end the call. He remembered Judge Caprio politely giving him chances. He remembered ignoring them all. Then he replayed his own arrogance, word for word. "Just wait. I'm busy. I don't answer to anyone." A wave of embarrassment washed over him. Not because he was scared. Not because he was in custody. But because, for the first time, he saw himself through the eyes of the people in that courtroom. His assistant's voice echoed in his memory. "Sir, sometimes you talk to people like they're not real." His ex-wife's voice. "You don't listen. Not to anyone." His board member's warning. "Your ego is becoming a liability." In the silence of the cell, the truth sharpened. He had become a man who believed rules were for everyone else. Minutes passed. Then more. He didn't know how long he'd been there. "Don't touch me. Do you know who I am? I'm the CEO of Hale Dynamics. I don't answer to anyone." Judge Caprio slowly closed the file in front of him. That was the signal. He wasn't angry. He wasn't emotional. He was simply done. His voice dropped to a calm, steady tone. "Officer, please bring Mr. Hale's phone to the bench." The CEO blinked, confused. "What? No, you can't take my phone." The officer reached for it. "Sir. Hand it over." And finally, the CEO realized this was no longer a negotiation. He hesitated. But the courtroom wasn't waiting anymore. Jaw tight, breath sharp, he handed the phone over like it was a piece of his power being stolen from him. Judge Caprio held the phone, placed it aside, and looked directly into the CEO's eyes. "Mr. Hale. This is a courtroom of the United States. Not your boardroom. Not a conference call. Not your playground." The CEO swallowed hard. Judge Caprio continued. "You were asked 3 times to end your call. You chose arrogance. You chose disrespect. And now, the court will choose consequences." The CEO's confidence drained from his face. Judge Caprio turned to the officer and said the words that shook the entire room. "Officer, place him in custody for contempt of court." The courtroom erupted with shock. The CEO stumbled back. "What? No. No, you can't do that. I'm a CEO. I have a meeting." Judge Caprio didn't flinch. "Consider this. Your first meeting with accountability." Handcuffs clicked. And the man who thought he was untouchable was escorted out of the courtroom, the metal door slammed shut behind him. For the first time in his life, Donovan Hale, the untouchable CEO, was no longer untouchable. He stood inside the small holding cell, still breathing fast from the shock, the humiliation, the disbelief. "What is happening?" he whispered to himself. The courtroom was waiting. Judge Frank Caprio had just finished reviewing the complaint, and he looked up calmly. "All right," he said, "let's bring the next case forward." The CEO, Mr. Donovan Hale. People shifted in their seats. Everyone had seen the attitude he brought in part 2. Everyone knew the arrogance on his face. But nobody expected what happened next. The officer called out, "Mr. Hale, step up." But the CEO didn't move. He lifted one finger into the air. Not toward the judge, not toward the officer, but toward the person on his phone call. He was still talking. In open court. Phone pressed to his ear. Voice casual, almost mocking. Yeah, I'm here," he said loudly. "At court. It's nothing serious. Just a judge doing his little job." The entire room froze. Judge Caprio's eyebrows lifted just slightly. The kind of expression he gave only when he heard something unbelievable. "Sir," he said gently, "please end the call." The CEO didn't even look up. He turned away, leaning on the podium like he owned it. "One SEC, I'm talking," he whispered into the phone. Then louder. "Relax, Judge. I'll be done in a minute." Gasps filled the room. Nobody talks to Judge Frank Caprio like that. Yet the CEO acted like he was in a shopping mall, not a courtroom. Judge Caprio tried again, still patient. "Sir, I'm asking you one more time. Hang up the phone." The CEO rolled his eyes. A long, exaggerated eye roll. The kind people do when they believe they are above everyone else. Then with a half smile, he said, "You get paid whether I talk or not, right? So just, wait. I'm closing a deal here." Silence. Pure silence. Even the air felt tight. The court officer stepped forward. "Sir. You need to end the call immediately." The CEO brushed him off with a little wave. Finally, footsteps approached, firm, controlled, familiar. Judge Frank Caprio appeared outside the cell. Not angry. Not vindictive. Just calm. The judge looked at the CEO for a long moment. "Mr. Hale," he said, voice steady, "do you understand why you're here?" The CEO opened his mouth, but no words came out. So Judge Caprio continued. "You were not punished because you're wealthy. You were not punished because you're powerful. You were punished because you disrespected this courtroom, the officers, the process, and every citizen who comes here seeking fairness." The CEO lowered his head. Judge Caprio stepped closer. "In my courtroom," he said softly, "every person matters. The janitor. The student. The single mother. The immigrant. And yes, even the CEO." Silence filled the space. Then the judge added. "But the moment you believe your success places you above the law, that is the moment the law must remind you where you stand." The CEO's throat tightened. This wasn't about jail. This wasn't about punishment. This was a mirror. Showing him a version of himself he didn't want to see. Judge Caprio nodded to the officer. "Release him." The door opened with a heavy metallic click. But the CEO didn't move. Not immediately. Because freedom didn't feel like freedom anymore. It felt like a lesson. A painful one. One he needed. He stepped out slowly, shoulders no longer squared with arrogance, but softened with humility. Judge Caprio offered him one final look. A look that wasn't harsh, but fatherly. "Mr. Hale," he said, "the world doesn't need more powerful men. It needs more respectful ones." Then he turned and walked away, leaving the CEO alone in the hallway, with a silence louder than any sentence the judge could have given. I learned that I've been living in a world where I believed rules were for other people, not me. I learned that my success blinded me. His voice cracked slightly. I saw myself in that cell, and I didn't like the man staring back. The gallery went silent. Judge Caprio folded his hands. "Mr. Hale, humility is hard to teach. Many men spend their lives avoiding it." The judge paused, then said the line that hit Donovan's chest like a hammer. "But yesterday, humility found you." A long breath escaped the CEO's lungs. The judge continued. "I reviewed your record. I spoke with the officers. And I believe that while punishment is necessary, so is redemption." The courtroom leaned forward again. "Here is my decision," Judge Caprio said firmly. "I am sentencing you to a $2,000 fine. Not because you cannot afford it, but because consequences matter." Donovan nodded respectfully. Additionally, the judge added, "You will perform 100 hours of community service, working directly with individuals who do not have the advantages you do." The CEO hesitated. Not in resistance, but in realization. He deserved it. But Judge Caprio wasn't finished. And finally, the judge said, "You will give a public seminar, free of charge, to young entrepreneurs, emphasizing respect, humility, and the responsibility of leadership." A ripple of surprise went through the room. The judge leaned forward slightly. "You built a business, Mr. Hale. Now it's time to build your character." Donovan exhaled. Not in frustration, but in acceptance. "Your Honor," he said quietly, "thank you, for not giving up on me." A rare sentence. One Judge Caprio heard maybe once every few years. The courtroom remained silent, as if frozen in a moment that felt larger than a simple case. Finally, Judge Caprio gave a soft nod. Case dismissed. The gavel struck the wood. The next morning, the courtroom looked different. Not because anything had changed physically. The same wooden benches. The same soft hum of old fluorescent lights. The same quiet murmurs from people waiting for their cases. But because he had changed. Donovan Hale walked in slowly, not with the swagger of a man who owned the room, but with the quiet steps of someone who had been forced to confront himself. The reporters who once chased him for comments now stared with wide eyes. "Is that really him? He looks different." What happened yesterday shook him. Even the bailiff raised an eyebrow. For the first time in his life, Donovan wasn't trying to be impressive. He was trying to be better. He placed his phone in his pocket and turned it off. No assistant. No entourage. No bodyguards. Just a man facing the consequences of who he had become. When Judge Frank Caprio entered, everyone stood. Donovan stood too. Not out of obligation, but out of respect. The judge reviewed the file for a moment, then looked up. "Mr. Hale, step forward." This time, Donovan didn't rush or posture. He walked to the podium, hands folded, eyes lowered. Judge Caprio studied him carefully. Not with anger, but with the keen, perceptive judgment of a man who had seen every kind of human being walk into his courtroom. "Mr. Hale," the judge began, "yesterday you demonstrated a level of arrogance and disregard that cannot be ignored." Donovan nodded once. A slow, heavy nod that carried the weight of the entire previous day. "But today," the judge continued, "you appear to be a different man. Did you learn anything during your time in custody?" The courtroom leaned in. Cameras lifted. Pens froze over notepads. Donovan inhaled deeply. Yes, Your Honor, he said, voice steady but softer. But the sound didn't echo like punishment. It echoed like rebirth. As Donovan Hale turned to leave, he didn't look at the cameras, or the reporters, or the spectators. He looked at the officers he had ignored. Thank you, he said to each one. Clearly, sincerely. Outside the courthouse, a reporter pushed forward. Mr. Hale. Any words for the public? For the first time ever, the CEO gave an answer that wasn't polished, rehearsed, or strategic. Yes, he said. I came in here thinking I was above everyone. Judge Caprio reminded me that respect isn't earned by money. It's earned by how you treat people. Flashbulbs popped. People whispered. The CEO straightened his posture. Not arrogantly, but with a renewed sense of purpose. Today, he said, I stopped being the man I used to be. He walked away from the cameras. Toward a future he never expected. But desperately needed. A future shaped. Not by power. Not by wealth. But by one judge's quiet but unbreakable wisdom. And that is how. A single phone call. Turned into. The most important lesson of a CEO's life.